Hey, beautiful, before heading forward, can you please take a moment and hit that subscribe button to reach my goal? Let's grab the snacks and enjoy the most satisfying Karen meltdown. Here you go. The sun was golden and warm that morning, wrapping the backyard in a soft amber glow. Birds chirped lazily as the wind danced through the blooming hydrangeas, and the scent of roses drifted from the garden arch I had built with my own hands. I stood on the freshly cut lawn in my suit jacket, heart pounding, not from nerves of marriage, but from disbelief. My wedding day, my home, my yard, but none of it looked like mine anymore. Bright pink balloons floated overhead tied to the same chairs we'd rented for our guests. A bounce house sagged beside the flower beds. A plastic clown leaned over my rose-covered altar, waving at children who shrieked with joy. Tables loaded with candy bowls and pizza boxes cluttered the grass. The archway where I was supposed to say, "I do," was now draped with a cheap, glittering banner that read, "Happy Birthday, Madison." A woman in a unicorn costume sprinted past me carrying a tray of juice boxes. My stomach twisted. I looked down and realized some kid had stepped in frosting and smeared it all over the aisle runner I had spent 2 hours aligning the night before. The air smelled like barbecue and bubble gum, not roses and lavender. And over it all, above the laughter of strangers, I could hear the distant rumble of my fiancé's car pulling into the driveway. My name is Jake, and this is the story of how the worst neighbor imaginable ruined our wedding, and how I made sure she'd never forget it. A week before the chaos, my fiancée Clara and I had been dancing around the kitchen, planning the ceremony over coffee. We'd had a venue booked for months, but a last-minute plumbing disaster left it unusable. Instead of panicking, Clara looked up from her mug, smiled, and said, "Why don't we do it here at home? Our home. The backyard's beautiful this time of year." It made perfect sense. We'd spent years turning this little house into a dream. The backyard was our sanctuary. Trees lined the fence with ivy draped along the trellis, and flower beds that Clara had planted every spring since we moved in. We rented a white canopy tent, ordered elegant wooden chairs, brought in a local jazz trio. Everything was coming together. We even invited Miss Edna, our elderly neighbor, who always waved from her porch and brought us cookies at Christmas. She clapped her hands in delight when she heard about the backyard wedding and told us my father would have been proud. That meant the world to me. Then Karen appeared. Karen moved in 3 years ago. Platinum hair, giant sunglasses, little designer dog that barked at its own reflection. She was the kind of neighbor who left passive-aggressive notes about lawn clippings and called the city when our recycling bin tipped over. Her house was 2 lots over, but her presence was felt like a sunburn. She always had something to say, and it was never kind. I tried being polite, waved when I saw her, smiled through her condescending comments. But she was the kind of woman who saw friendliness as weakness. So when she showed up the day before the wedding uninvited, holding a cup of iced coffee and flashing that reptilian smile, I knew something was off. She sauntered onto the lawn like she owned it, her sunglasses reflecting the garden as she said, "So I hear you're doing the wedding thing out here tomorrow." I nodded, distracted, checking a delivery list. She looked around, unimpressed, then said, "I hope it doesn't interfere with our event." I paused. "What event?" "Oh, didn't you hear? We're throwing my granddaughter Madison's birthday party. We'll be using your yard." She sipped her drink, like that was the most natural thing in the world. I blinked. "I'm sorry. You mean your yard, right?" She smiled wider. "No, sweetie. Yours. The kids love the space. Plus, your grass is so much softer than ours. Perfect for bounce houses. Anyway, don't worry. will be out by mid-afternoon." I actually laughed. I thought it was a joke. She winked and turned away, leaving me stunned in the middle of my own lawn. Clara found me a few minutes later, still holding the clipboard, frozen in disbelief. I told her what Karen said, and she frowned. She wouldn't actually do that. Would she? I shook my head. She couldn't. She wouldn't dare. Not without asking. Not here. Not now. We were wrong. That night I slept lightly. I woke before the sun and headed out to double-check the setup. That's when I saw the first balloon tied to the gate. Then another. And another. Followed by a guy in cargo shorts dragging in, folding tables from a pickup truck, and a group of teenagers unloading boxes of decorations. "Hey," I called. "What's going on here?" One of the teens shrugged. "We're with Karen, setting up for Madison's party. She said it was cool. This is private property." I said louder, "This is my yard." The guy in cargo shorts just laughed. Karen said it was fine. "You must be the friend she mentioned." I wasn't her friend. I wasn't anything to her, except the unlucky fool whose yard she decided to hijack. I walked around the corner, and there she was, sitting on one of our white chairs, sipping a mimosa from a glittery tumbler, wearing a pink sun hat and humming to herself. "Karen," I said, trying to keep calm. "What the hell is this?" She glanced at me lazily. "Oh, Jake. You're up early. Isn't the weather gorgeous?" "Karen," I repeated, "you can't be here. You can't just throw a party in my yard." She sipped her drink. "You weren't using it." "And I didn't see any guests yet. Don't be dramatic. My guests are coming in an hour. This is my wedding day." She raised her eyebrows. "Really? Well, that's unfortunate timing. But don't worry. We'll be done soon. The kids won't be in your way. You'll barely notice us." My jaw clenched. "You didn't ask. You never had permission. You're trespassing." Karen stood slowly and smiled as if I were a child throwing a tantrum. "Don't be so uptight, Jake. It's just a lawn. Be neighborly." Her dog barked at my feet. Somewhere behind me, a clown honked a horn, and children screamed in delight. I looked at my watch. 45 minutes until the florist arrived. Until Clara stepped into the backyard in her dress. Until our future was supposed to begin. I stared at Karen, who was now directing someone to hang balloons from the arch. And that's when I realized she wasn't going anywhere. Not without a fight. Not without consequences. Not without regretting the day she thought she could steal our moment. The sun was climbing higher, casting sharp shadows over the chaos on my lawn. Clara arrived 30 minutes before the ceremony, expecting a quiet space of love and celebration. Instead, she stepped out of the car into a full-blown carnival. Her eyes widened, her mouth opened, but no words came. She looked at the bounce house, then at the woman twisting balloon animals by our gazebo, then at me. I walked over slowly, trying to keep my voice calm. "Clara?" I tried to stop it. "She just started setting up this morning. Said we weren't using it." Clara blinked twice, her veil fluttering in the breeze. "But this is our wedding." I nodded helplessly. "I know." A speaker near the garden blared a remix of Baby Shark. Kids in glittery birthday hats ran through the flower beds, knocking over a centerpiece. A small girl tried to climb the arch where we were supposed to exchange vows. I watched as frosting from her cupcake smeared across the linen drapes we had rented for $100 a panel. A mother carrying a tray of sodas stepped in front. Clara smiled and said, "You must be the magician. Can you start early? The kids are getting restless. Clara turned to me slowly, her expression shifting from shock to heartbreak. We need to stop this, Jake. I already tried. She won't leave. I took Clara's hand and guided her through our own backyard, now a battlefield of clashing themes and stolen joy. Our rented chairs had been rearranged to face the bounce house. The wedding tablecloths were crumpled beneath plastic pizza boxes. Our unity candles were missing entirely. I found one under a pile of discarded juice pouches. I marched toward Karen, again heat rising in my chest. She stood near the garden, sipping another mimosa and laughing with a group of guests. I stepped in front of her, voice low and sharp. Karen, I'm not asking again. You need to shut this down now. We have a ceremony. Starting in 20 minutes. Karen didn't even flinch. She gestured at the crowd. Look around, Jake. They're having a good time. You want me to ruin a child's birthday for your backyard wedding? It's not just a backyard wedding. It's our wedding. You are on our property. You didn't ask. You lied. She shrugged and tilted her head. You should have made it clearer. We're still using the space. I didn't see a sign or anything. I stared at her in stunned silence. You knew. I told you yesterday. She smiled. You sounded uncertain. And we already booked the clown. A kid behind us screamed with delight as confetti exploded into the air. Clara stood at the edge of the patio, surrounded by guests who didn't know her, didn't care about her, and didn't see her tears. I stepped back, pulled out my phone, and called the police. The dispatcher was polite, said someone would be sent shortly. I hung up, heart pounding. Karen continued sipping her drink as if nothing had happened. I half expected her to pull out a lounge chair and sunbathe on my altar. 10 minutes later, a patrol car pulled up. Relief flooded my chest. I waved the officer over. He stepped out, adjusted his belt, and took a look around. I explained everything, clearly showed him the property lines on my permit papers, showed him the rental contracts. I told him about the noise, about the trespassing, about the refusal to leave. He nodded, took notes, walked over to Karen. She greeted him with a warm smile and called him Officer Tim like they were old friends. Her voice turned sugary. Oh, this is just a silly mix-up. Jake here is having a little ceremony and we're having a birthday. Everyone's just enjoying the day. Officer Tim looked back at me. She says it's a misunderstanding. It's not, I said flatly. They're on my property. She never asked permission. We're hosting a legally permitted event. Karen's lawyer friend stepped forward, now holding a clipboard of her own. She smiled with professional confidence. There are no visible property markings, and my client has reason to believe this portion of lawn falls under communal easement. It doesn't, I snapped. I have documents. The line ends at that fence. Everything here is mine. The officer looked between us, clearly uncomfortable. Look, I don't want to escalate this. It seems like you, too, are neighbors. Maybe find a peaceful solution. Mediate. Share the space. Share the space. For a wedding, with a bounce house and a clown and a unicorn handler. I took a deep breath, stepped back, and nodded. Fine. I'll handle it another way. Clara and I tried to proceed with the ceremony anyway. Our guests started arriving. Some turned around in confusion, thinking they were in the wrong place. Others stayed awkwardly on the porch, watching in disbelief as a kid ran past holding a glitter-smeared Barbie in one hand and our wedding program in the other. The florist never made it in. Karen's guests had parked along the entire curb, blocking the vendor van. Our photographer texted that she couldn't find parking and left. The jazz trio packed up after being drowned out by a DJ blasting party hits. We stood under the arch, in front of a few supportive friends while someone juggled behind us. I tried to say the vows, but the words felt hollow against the roar of screaming kids and electronic dance beats. Clara smiled through tears. I held her hands and tried not to break down in front of her. Then a clown walked between us, honking a horn. The guests laughed. Ours and hers. Karen stood at the edge of the lawn, grinning like a queen. She took a selfie and posted it immediately. Captions said, "Best party ever. Backyard takeover. Sorry, not sorry." I looked at the screen over her shoulder and saw the comments rolling in. Hearts and LOLs. Little did she know that same phone would become the tool of her undoing. Because at that moment, something in me changed. Anger gave way to clarity. If I couldn't make her leave, then I'd make her wish she had never come. That night, I didn't sleep. Clara sat beside me on the living room couch, her dress still draped over a chair, her eyes red from hours of silent crying. I held her hand and stared out the window, watching as the last car from Karen's party, finally, drove off well past midnight. My backyard was a wasteland, cupcake wrappers tangled in the hedges, soda cans crushed into the flower beds, silly string dangling from the altar like a ghost of everything we lost. "She ruined it," Clara whispered. "I know," I said. She didn't even apologize. She just smiled and left. "I know. So what do we do?" I looked down at her hand in mine, the ring that had no ceremony, no vows, no music. And then I looked at my phone, still open to Karen's post from earlier, still full of comments and likes and hashtags, still bragging about the thing she stole from us. We fight back. The next morning, while Clara slept, I started planning. I dug through property records, zoning maps, HOA bylaws, county noise ordinances. I pulled every document I had on our home, the deed, the lot dimensions, the permits from our wedding setup. I called the city records office. I called a lawyer. I called a friend who worked in digital marketing. And by noon, I had something better than revenge. I had a strategy. The first move was simple. I went to the backyard and took pictures. Not just casual shots. High-resolution images showing the damage. The cake smeared into the grass. The shattered glass near the flower bed. The trampled plants and overturned chairs. The bounce house deflated and tangled in the wedding arch. I documented every detail, then filed a trespass report with the police again. This time with photos, timestamps, property lines, and a clear chain of communication. Then I filed a claim with my homeowner's insurance listing the damages. They asked if I knew the party responsible. I said yes. I had her full name, address, and even screenshots of her bragging online. While that was processing, I uploaded the pictures to a new post on my social media. I included a short caption. This was supposed to be our wedding. Instead, our neighbor hijacked our yard for a birthday party she never asked to host. She left it destroyed. She called the police on us. We have proof. And now we want justice. It went viral in under 4 hours. By nightfall, the post had over 80,000 shares. Wedding blogs picked it up. Local news stations messaged asking for interviews. People flooded Karen's original post with angry comments. They found her real estate business page and started leaving reviews. Her public Yelp profile dropped to 1 star. She posted a video trying to explain that it was all a misunderstanding, that I gave vague permission, that I was exaggerating. But the internet didn't care. They saw the photos. They saw the smug grin in her party selfies. They saw a wedding destroyed and a couple humiliated. And they picked sides. Ours. Clara didn't believe it at first. She thought it would blow over. But the momentum kept building. Someone from a wedding decor company offered to sponsor a redo. A local news anchor offered to officiate. Strangers sent gift cards, letters, kind words. It didn't fix what happened, but it showed us we weren't alone. And then I played my next card. I found out Karen's party had included a rented bounce house, DJ tables, even hired staff. None of it was permitted. Our neighborhood has clear rules for events on residential property. Noise must be under a certain level. No commercial rentals allowed without prior approval. She had violated nearly every line of the community guidelines. So, I reported her. Not once, not quietly. I sent the HOA a detailed packet of evidence, photos, screenshots, video of the DJ playing music at full volume, testimony from our guests, noise readings from a decibel meter app. I printed everything and mailed copies to the HOA, president, and every board member. Then I uploaded a new post, update. We've submitted a formal complaint to our HOA. Karen's party broke over a dozen rules. We've also filed a damage claim and police report. If you've had issues with her, before now's the time to speak up. People responded. Oh, they responded. Turns out, we weren't the first. Neighbors came forward with stories. She let her dog poop on their lawn. She cut across properties to walk to her car. She once accused a teenager of stealing mail because he wore a hoodie. One woman said Karen left a note on her door complaining that her wind chimes were too emotional. Emotional? I didn't even know that was a thing. But the best part was the dad of one of the kids from the birthday party. He messaged me personally. Said Karen told him they were renting a friend's yard. Said she never mentioned it was unauthorized. Said he was sorry for the mess, and he'd be happy to sign something. I thanked him and forwarded it to the HOA. The board held an emergency meeting within 48 hours. Karen wasn't invited, but she showed up anyway. Marched in like she owned the place. Said the whole thing was blown out of proportion. Said I was slandering her. Said she'd sue. They let her talk. Then they read the violations aloud one by one. 10 separate fines. Mandatory apology. Probation from hosting any events. And if she contested it, they'd move to remove her from the community association altogether. She screamed, called it harassment, stormed out of the meeting. The next morning, a for sale sign appeared in her front yard, and Clara and I finally sat on our porch and laughed. It wasn't over yet, but it was close. The morning we got married for real, the sky was clean, and the grass was soft, and nothing smelled like spilled soda or burnt pizza. Clara wore the same dress, though she had to get it steamed twice to get the glitter out. I wore the same suit, though the jacket still held a faint whiff of balloons. Our guests sat in chairs that hadn't been knocked over or rearranged by sugar-fueled children. And behind us, the altar stood tall again, rebuilt with stronger beams and fresh flowers. This time, it was ours, and only ours. The local florist donated 200 roses. A bakery sent a 5-tier cake shaped like a miniature chapel. A jazz trio performed for free, while the DJ from Karen's party posted an apology on TikTok that got more views than his actual performances. A wedding photographer who saw our story on Instagram offered a full shoot on the house. Clara cried before we even said the vows, and this time they were tears of joy. The best part was the sign. It stood right at the edge of the yard, bold and unmissable. Private event. No trespassing violators will be prosecuted. And taped underneath it was a copy of Karen's fine notice in full color, but that wasn't the ending. Not yet. Because 2 weeks later I got a call from a reporter at a national News site. They were running a story on neighborhood entitlement incidents and wanted to feature us. Clara and I agreed. We told the whole story start to finish. We held nothing back. Names were redacted for legal reasons, but anyone local knew who it was about. The article exploded. It became one of the most shared human interest stories of the year. A week later, a meme page posted a photo of Karen's smirking selfie next to a shot of our wrecked wedding with the caption, "This is why you RSVP." It got 1 million likes, and when people reverse searched the image, they found her business, her Yelp, her face, her reputation. Karen tried to go private. She deleted posts, closed pages. But the internet doesn't forget. Her clients pulled contracts, her ratings plummeted, and then came the final blow. Someone found her application to join the city's planning committee. They shared it along with a highlight reel of everything she'd done. It took less than a day for the committee to vote against her. She lost the bid. She lost the seat. She lost the face she'd spent years building, but she still didn't apologize. Not once. She moved out silently just before the end of the month. A for sale sign flipped to sold. A moving truck pulled away. She left no goodbye. No note. Just a plastic flamingo she forgot in the side yard, and a legacy of wrath, and yet we didn't feel victorious until the thank you letters arrived from couples who'd read our story and canceled toxic family members from their weddings. From brides who'd been steamrolled by demanding mothers and finally stood their ground. From neighbors who used our post as proof to get their own Karens fined. People we would never meet now felt seen, empowered, justified. Clara held one of the letters in her lap one night and said quietly, "You know, I think this happened for a reason." I looked at her and said, "You think we were meant to be humiliated by a clown and a bounce house?" She smiled. "No, I think we were meant to show people that you don't have to take it." Lying down, that hit me hard. We had started with heartbreak, but ended with a message, and one final twist sealed it. 6 months after the wedding, I got an alert on my phone, a trending post from a local account. The new owner of Karen's house had posted a video. It showed a peaceful yard being renovated, a new fence being built. And in the comments, someone asked, "Do you know who lived there before?" The reply was one sentence. Yeah, the one who crashed a wedding with a birthday party and lost everything. I showed it to Clara, and we both laughed until we cried. Justice didn't just arrive, it lingered. And as for us, we got married twice, once under chaos and once under clarity, and both times I said the same thing, "I do only." Now I know that meant more than vows. It meant I do choose to fight for us. I do choose to stand up. I do choose not to let someone else write the ending, because in the end the villain lost the party, faded, and love stayed, and that was the real celebration.